This presentation will address the focus question, what is the relationship between sport and national identity? And it will look at Australian sporting identity in particular, and look at a number of sporting achievements and sporting events that may actually promote Australian sporting identity. And the key question is critically examine how sport has been used to promote an Australian national identity. So the first thing to think about is what is the impact of Australian sporting success on the international stage on the people of Australia? So what do the people think about Australia's success on the sporting field? And it generally gives people a sense of national pride. It provides a sense of confidence in the population. It creates high levels of morale, so people just generally feel good about themselves. It can lead to increased participation in sport, and it can also lead to greater levels of media coverage. And then you've also got to think about what is the impact of Australian success on the international stage. So how does the world perceive Australia when Australia is successful in sport? So the world perceives Australia to have advanced facilities, great technology and scientific research, a level of commitment and determination, a passion for sport. The world sees Australia as a healthy and able nation, prosperous, and a nation that has advanced coaching techniques and strategies. But what do people around the world see when they actually witness Australia's success? They see our flag, they see our coat of arms, they see our colours, the green and gold, and they also see or hear the national anthem, Advance Australia Fair, and particularly at the Olympics when a gold medalist is celebrated. That's what they see, that's what the world sees, and it really is a promotional opportunity for the country. But Australia is also seen as an underdog, a sporting underdog, a country with a small population that excels far beyond expectation. And if you look here at the 2000 Sydney Olympic medal table, you can see that Australia is situated number 4 in the world, which is such a great achievement when you look at some of the nations below Australia who have far greater populations and a far greater, I guess, level of wealth than Australia as a nation. There are a number of events that foster or promote Australia's sporting identity, both here and internationally, and one of those events is the Ashes, which is a cricket series that's held between Australia and England. And basically this cricket series, which goes back or dates back to 1882, it's a very passionate test series between the two nations, and both countries are trying to outdo each other. And given Australia's colonial history, the Ashes really is an opportunity for Australia to get one over the mother country, of course England. So our capacity to win that series really affects the nation. If Australia wins, it's seen as a really positive morale booster for the nation, and if Australia loses, it's seen as a great source of disappointment. So it is a very eagerly watched cricket series by the nation, and often politicians are involved in promoting the event or celebrating our success. With Australia still being part of the Commonwealth and the Queen as our head of state, the Ashes is an opportunity to gain an upper hand over England and to measure our sporting supremacy over England. And as I said, the rivalry really dates back to first settlement, and there are other sports that have a similar rivalry with England, a similar Ashes rivalry, for example, rugby union and rugby league. The next event is the Olympic Games, of course, this international event where the best athletes from around the world compete, and Australia prides itself on performing above expectation, and the performances at the Olympics are often used to stamp Australia's mark on the world stage against much larger nations. The Sydney Olympic Games showcased Australia's capacity to organise and run a major event, and it was described as the best Olympics ever at the time. Um, when we perform below expectation or below our usual standards, such as in Montreal and London, it's a really big deal, and the nation really gets disappointed about that. The media tends to write many stories about Australia's perceived failure on the world stage. Australia hosted the Olympic Games in Melbourne in 1956 and, of course, in Sydney in 2000. And, of course, these events were very successful and obviously showcased Australia to the world. As mentioned, the 2000 Olympics was described as the best Olympics ever by one Antonio Samaranch, who was the IOC president at the time. And this really reinforced Australia's capacity to successfully run and organise a major event. And Australia was really seen as a major player in hosting international sporting events. Many of the Olympics that followed were compared to Sydney. The Commonwealth Games is another large-scale event similar to the Olympics that brings together countries that have associated themselves with the Commonwealth. And we get an opportunity, or Australia gets the opportunity, to compete against like-minded nations such as England, Canada, and New Zealand, and other nations such as Scotland and India. And again, this is an opportunity for Australia to shine on the world stage. Australia is often very successful at the Commonwealth Games, and it showcases our athletes to the world, and also provides a great opportunity for athletes to prepare for the Olympic Games 2 years later. Australia is set to host the Commonwealth Games in 2018 and have hosted on 4 other occasions, in 2006 in Melbourne, the most recent. The Bledisloe Cup Rugby Union competition is another opportunity for Australia to showcase their talents against New Zealand, who are often seen as the benchmark in rugby union. New Zealand, the New Zealand team, often the All Blacks as they're known, perform their cultural haka dance beforehand, and Australia is often very much trying to do their best against New Zealand because they're a close neighbour, but also because they've been very, very successful in rugby union. So in the sport of rugby union, not only is the Bledisloe Cup an opportunity for Australia to measure its success, we also have the Rugby World Cup, which is played every 4 years, the most recent in 2015, when it was held in England. Of course, it is an international event where up to 20 nations participate, and Australia is usually ranked very highly in rugby union and has won the Rugby World Cup a few times and has actually hosted the event in 2003. So it is a big opportunity for Australia to shine on the world stage and showcase our skills, showcase our capacity to run events as well, as it did in 2003. The World Cup Soccer is another huge event which is often viewed as the largest sporting event in the world, with 32 teams from around the world. Australia qualified for the World Cup in 1974 and then had a large break away from the World Cup and managed to qualify again in 2006 and has managed to do so every World Cup since. Qualifying for the Football World Cup is a really big deal, and it's seen as a measure of Australia's success and capacity to compete on the world stage, and obviously viewed as a measure of the health of football in Australia. The World Cup is held in Russia in 2018, and Australia is still qualifying